You missed some important news from the LGBTQ+ community this week. To ensure you are current, we are recapping that important news. Here's what you may have missed.
The drag race star Selena Estides comes for Ross Matthews. In last week's episode of Rupaul's Drag Race, Selena Estides was sent home after performing brilliantly in the main challenge. She gave a stunning and emotional performance, and she served it up in the lip sync, but sadly, it wasn't enough to save her. This may be the case for almost every queen who walks into the workroom. Though most of them take the rejection in stride, that is not the case with Estides, who is apparently unhappy about her elimination. While on stage at a viewing event in West Hollywood, she let the audience know how she felt, directed most of her colorful language at one of the judges, Ross Matthews, for his comments and criticisms. Her comment earned her thunderous applause, perhaps because those who were in the crowd agreed with her, or maybe because it was simply funny to hear her drag the judge in such a manner. Estides may have been angry, but she also seemed proud of herself and what she managed to do in the show.
The trans community and International Transgender Day of Visibility. They all connect. Trans community fears backlash and hate over Nashville shooting on the eve of Transgender Day of Visibility. The Nashville shooter, Audrey Hale, who was killed by responding officers, has been identified as transgender. This marks more than 350 children killed by gun violence and more than 130 mass shootings in 2023 through International Transgender Day of Visibility. That is more mass shootings than days so far this year. The shooting comes on the eve of the Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st, a day to celebrate the transgender community and raise awareness of the challenges that they face. The Nashville shooter, Audrey Hale, who was killed by responding officers, has been identified as transgender, which makes the timing very difficult. Hale, 28, identified as a transgender male named Aiden, and the shooting happened right before the Transgender Day of Visibility. Aiden's family and friends are shocked and saddened by the news. They say that Aiden was a kind and loving person who never showed any signs of violence. The shooting is a tragedy for the city of Nashville and its entire community and the transgender community. It is a reminder of the political motivation and the violence that transgender people face on a daily basis. Much of the focus on Aiden has been radical GOP conservatives and evangelicals that blame gun violence on trans health care and other related issues. Apparently, not the crisis of guns. Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted that it was trans health care that is the problem, not guns, and that the leadership of the trans civil rights organizations across America today, because of that and other issues, warn of the significant potential of a dramatic increase in violence against the transgender community. On Transgender Day of Visibility, we remember the transgender people who have been killed and injured in violence. We mourn those lost in Nashville. We also celebrate the transgender people and community who are living their lives openly and proudly and face unprecedented levels of hate and violence in America. To discuss these issues, we have South Florida Gay News community editor John Hayden. We also welcome Mateo Ventura Brewer, the executive director of the nonprofit advocacy organization Aqua Foundation, and Mateo is trans.
Gay senators have courage, breaks down in tears as he apologizes to trans people for GOP colleagues. Nebraska State Senator John Frederickson broke down in tears this week as he apologized to transgender people for Republican state senators' vicious attack and disgusting comments about trans people. Transgender people have been targeted by the religious right and Republican politicians repeatedly in recent years, both in the state and at the federal level. But in Nebraska, the GOP has been particularly vicious when Frederickson took to the podium to speak as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. He spoke directly to trans Nebraskans saying, "Heads up, chins up, we are survivors. A filibuster is a tactic used in U.S. Senate to delay or block a vote on a measure by preventing debate on it from ending. This was part of the longest filibuster in Nebraska's history to stop the anti-trans legislation."
Nebraska lawmaker with trans son tells GOP she's done with them in history-making speech.
And if you don't believe me, if you think I'm going to cool down and change my mind, you should believe me. No one in the world holds a grudge like me. And no one in the world cares less about being petty than me. I don't care. I don't like you. You aren't welcome in my space. You aren't a safe person for my child to be around, or any child, frankly. Don't believe me? You should. Senator Hughes yesterday was asking all kinds of questions on the microphone, seemingly coming from a place of complete sincerity about how does this care work? Do parents have to consent every time for kids to get gender-affirming care? Questions that had already been answered. And this morning, Senator Frederickson was answering those questions again, and she's sitting under the balcony not listening. So I go over there and I say, he's speaking to you. He's answering the questions that you specifically had that ostensibly were, preventing you from supporting this bill or not. Now she's sitting with Kathleen Kauth, who's probably saying, "Don't worry, girl, hold strong. We're gonna get those trans kids. Don't worry. Don't listen to Megan." Screw that. Senator Hughes said, "Well, some people sent me some emails." So I guess some people sent her some emails and she probably definitely read them and took them to heart. So now she knows all the facts about what trans kids go through. One of the most hateful, bigoted, and wrong things that Senator Kathleen Kauth has said during this debate is that trans kids are hurting and sad. She might be right about that, but she's not right about why. The actions of bullies like Senator Kauth is what caused trans kids pain, not the fact that they're trans. Trans kids are normal, but for adults like Kathleen Kauth who harass them, who introduce bills to make their life harder, to make them feel like outsiders when they are not. There's nothing wrong with them. They get good grades, they go to school, they do activities in clubs, they have friends, they date, they have dreams and goals, they get married, they have kids, just like everybody else. Hopefully someday they run for the legislature and they can straighten some people out.
A Nebraska state senator is causing waves in the state legislature after a scathing speech where she told her Republican colleagues that she is done with being polite with them since they're attacking her family, namely her 12-year-old son who is transgender. Senator Megan Hunt, Democrat, said, quote, "My son is trans, and this bill, colleagues, is such an affront to me personally and would violate my rights to parent my child in Nebraska," end quote. She was referring to LB 574, which would ban doctors from providing gender-affirming care to transgender people under the age of 19. The measure includes puberty blockers, meaning that trans youth would have to go through puberty associated with the wrong gender and live with its permanent effects. If this bill passes, the bill is called the Let Them Grow Act and bans certain procedures for transgender youth, but explicitly allows them, if they're performed on intersex youth, to appear more like the sex a doctor assigns to them at birth. Nebraska State Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, Democrat, has been filibustering all bills in Nebraska's unicameral legislature for weeks now, and Hunt has joined her. The legislature meets for 90 days a year, and meaning that if they filibuster until June 9th, then they have killed all legislation for the year. We queer up entertainment. Madonna announces Nashville concert to protect LGBTQ+ community, trans, and drag queens. Madonna has added a Tennessee date to her upcoming celebration tour, with proceeds from the show benefiting trans rights organizations. The concert will take place on Friday, December 22nd at Nashville's Bridgestone Arena. In a statement addressing recent anti-LGBTQ+ legislation enacted across America, including in Tennessee, Madonna said, quote, "The oppression of the LGBTQ+ community is not only unacceptable and inhumane, it's creating an unsafe environment. It makes America a dangerous place for our most vulnerable citizens, especially trans women of color. Bob, the drag queen, and I will see you from the stage in Nashville, where we will celebrate the beauty that is the queer community," end quote. Along with the Nashville show, Madonna has added 7 other new dates to the celebration tour, including shows in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Palm Springs, and Sacramento, along with a second show in Phoenix and a third show in San Francisco and Las Vegas. Tickets for the newly announced dates go on sale April 1st via Ticketmaster, with a Live Nation pre-sale occurring one day earlier on March 31st.
Keep watching the only television news in the world from our LGBTQ+ community and stay informed on everything that is important for and about our diverse LGBTQ+ community.